So happy podcast tonight. Good moods around.
Yeah.
Pod 9 tonight. Let's get right into it. U.S. puts a whooping on Mexico team that was a lot more outmatched than I think anybody in this country anticipated them to be, and definitely Mexico anticipated to be.
Right.
Talk about Bianca Henniger looking like she'd never played in goal before. So just some quick takeaways from me. Your thoughts. I know you've been very pessimistic, right, about this team, about the direction they're heading, about this tournament in general. What's your thoughts after you've now watched 90 minutes worth of soccer that probably nobody could compete with in the world if they play like that?
Right, exactly, and that's exactly what I pretty much took away from that. I know when we talked last week, I said that this game is pretty much going to set the tone for the team going forward, because I think we were both on the same page of Mexico was going to be a good kind of radar to see where we're at, to a matchup for us to begin right away. We haven't played in a game that has held necessarily weight. Yes, we've had tournaments this summer and friendlies, but nothing that really held weight like a CONCACAF qualifying for the World Cup. So it was a good matchup. I thought in the first half we were a little bit all over the place. And really, I think we should have been up probably 3 or 4-0 at halftime. Rose had 2 shots that either just went wide and then hit the post. So if those go in, we're up 3-0 at half. But it was good to see that team come out second half and really kind of step on the gas pedal and really not let up, which I appreciated a lot. I think we're a team that once we get up, we kind of sit back and we're playing trying not to lose versus playing to win, which I understand that mentality. I just don't like that mentality.
How much of the starting lineup you think had an impact on this? It was a lineup full of no question marks in this lineup.
Right.
I don't think.
Right. And I'm right there with you. When I saw the lineup, I was like, this is probably one of the better lineups that Jill Ellis has actually put together. And I was interested to see how our back line did, just because Tierna Davidson had been playing so well for us on the back line. Essentially, I got to imagine if she's healthy, she would have been starting tonight. So how do you replace a starter who has played so well for us and back line played well?
Yeah, and then on the Mexico side, mentioned Bianca Henniger, and we'd also talked about Katie Johnson last week, and she didn't start, right?
Right. No, that was probably the biggest shocker to me between both starting lineups that were put out. In my mind, Katie Johnson's your best option to score goals.
Yeah, and you're trying to, just like the U.S. is, you're trying to come out and establish something, right? We saw, and when we did see Katie Johnson, we saw a nearly perfect ball. It would have taken a perfect ball to get a good shot on goal, but a nearly perfect lob over the top of Katie Johnson, who had a one touch to strike it, and she did, and she barely missed it. But like I said, if it's a perfect ball, we've actually seen her finish those before. And if you throw that scenario into the first 5-10 minutes of the game, that's
a whole different ball.
Yeah,
exactly.
So shocked is a good word for that. I was very surprised that she doesn't get a start there. And the broadcaster, Ali Wagner, was she one of them? And then I always forget that guy's name. And I saw him for the first time today. I'd never seen the guy before, so it's weird putting his face to his voice. But they did start to make comments about it. Well, what does Mexico change going into the next game, and strategy different wise? I gotta imagine they have Katie Johnson in the starting lineup.
Yeah, that was the biggest shocker for me. I know we spoke very briefly about it. I mentioned it to you. I did like their formation. I thought that their formation was going to give us a little bit more run for our money, just because it was so compact. You had 4 midfielders and 5 defenders. So I think that was going to be a big test for us before the match started. And then, we just kind of took over come the second half.
Yeah, and again, there's always moments throughout the game where I'm just amazed by Megan Rapinoe and the form that she has herself in all of these matches. You wonder if she ever will tire or not be our best player on the field, because right now there's no question still about it, and we're a year removed from me fully believing that a year ago.
Right.
Yeah, I thought Horan played well. Great flashes from Lavelle.
Yeah.
Just missed a couple of them.
Yeah.
And though she's the way that she goes, she's probably going to get it. She's going to score a hat trick.
Yeah.
Before you know it, right? Just always putting the ball on frame. Just needs to get lucky, and she'll put a few in the back of the net in one match. Agreed. So your predictions staying the same for the rest of the tournament. What are your thoughts, ideas going forward?
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, this game I thought was going to be our toughest game, at least in terms of group play. It's going to be interesting to see what Jill Ellis kind of does with these next two games in terms of who does she start, what kind of formation do we have, just because we have this confidence now of beating Mexico. Not only did we beat Mexico, but we laid the hammer down and we won 6-0. So what do we look like going forward? Do we switch things up maybe just a little bit to see who matches up a little bit better on the field, who has a little bit better chemistry on the field? I'd like to see Pugh get a little bit more involved in those things. I think she gets a start within the next two games as well. But yeah, we should be hopefully good to go to get through this group and win this group and then on to the knockout.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Next game is, I mentioned the time last time, Sunday at 4 o'clock. That will be on FS1, and that will be against Panama, who lost, right? Trinidad and Tobago beat Panama 3-0 today.
Other way around, I think, right?
Is that other way around? Panama beat Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so other big news that's happened this week that you and I have also discussed briefly, we'll get into a little bit more of it now, is the WNBA, much like the NWSL, will be looking for a new leader as Lisa Borders stepped down from the WNBA, and she's going to take up a different role. She'll be the new first CEO and president of the Time's Up, which is a group for women in the workplace that she will be heading. Stepping down from the WNBA, and it comes at a point in time where the WNBA will be going through some changes, and hopefully not for the worse, right? There are going to be great chances coming up for them to create a new collective bargaining agreement, to have a chance to prove to these players that they are part of this league and they want this to be the best league in the world, which we can get into. And the articles that I looked through today were very interesting, brought great points to the table. 1, 2, and 3 list about the challenges that the new president will have and the reasons why it's so important to find the right candidate for this position within the WNBA. So the first article that came up on my search was from Forbes. Very interesting how many Forbes articles relate to the WNBA and we get into talking about this. So it's very cool that does happen. But Forbes article from David Barry titled "The Challenges and Opportunities Facing the Next WNBA President." Like I said, 1, 2, 3 of these challenges / opportunities. Number one, I don't know if we put them in any order, but number one was player salaries. Talking about that CBA, talking about how the players only receive 20% of the revenue from the league, where the players are going to be asking for upwards of 50% of the league revenue. Even considering that the league has been very open that they don't make money, but the players obviously still feel that that's the money that is made is because of them, right? So they are worthy of it to a greater capacity than they are right now. Did you get a chance, as we go through these, anything you have to say to that when you get a chance to look at that?
Yeah, I did, and I really liked this one a lot. I think it brought up pretty much what we have kind of been talking about in general, or at least what we've thought in general, in terms of the players getting paid more, and then what that kind of looks like. So yes, there's some short-term kind of essentially debt that they're going to have to take on in order for the long run to be awesome and it be thriving down the road. And it's really hard to picture that right now, at least in terms of my mind, just because they have been so open about, hey, we're not making that much money, or we're really not making anything at this point. So I think and I think he brought this up in the article, they kind of need to stray away from that. And essentially what he said was invest in the players. And I think that's exactly right. I think that's something that the WNBA, the NWSL, they could all do that. And yes, it's gonna hurt in the short term, but long term, I think it's going to work and it would sustain the leagues. So I think that's a very valid point, and I'm on board with that.
Yeah, and point number 2 of his article was focus on long run investments, not short run profits, and and that does tie back into that first point about player salaries, where you're paying more now, so you're not making as much as a league per se, but you're investing in that long term development of your players, development of these players wanting to play here, of the fans being able to buy in and know these players, as opposed to watching them play and then they head overseas to get paid more. And then you also tie that into his third point, which is the league expansion, which we so much like to talk about here on this podcast. And it's obviously exciting for different reasons. You bring in a different fan base. You make more roster spots, which I think is going to be part of the next article I bring up. But making more roster spots, bringing in more talent, keeping more talent here, and tying that into that long term, where it's the same thing where everybody's staying here. You don't get to this point if you haven't had enough success to be here. And by that I mean that if you do these things, if you do focus on the long run investment and not the short term benefit, then that's a chance you have to take. And you've probably just heightened your chances of disbanding as a league and starting completely over. But it's either you take that chance or you sort of just meddle here, and we keep seeing these players leave to play overseas, and these players become exhausted from playing in 3 different leagues over the year, and then don't play in the Olympics. So you're at a point where you have to do something. And this is honestly a great chance and a great transition. And I would love to hear Lisa Borders' comments on this, because I could very well see her knowing that she's sort of done her job. Right now it's somebody else's turn.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that. I had read an article, can't remember, I came across it a couple of days ago, where that essentially was, at least in my mind, what she was kind of portraying, her sentiment of, I've kind of done my thing here. This is just me kind of transitioning out of it. I think I'm leaving the league in a great place. We've got it to this point of where we have this incredible talent in the league. And so it's just kind of the next step for her to move on. So it's going to be interesting to see who they bring in. And I know I brought this question up to you of, well, Lisa Borders' title was president. Are we filling that president spot? Are we getting a commissioner? Are we getting both? What does that kind of look like? And what, in the WNBA's mind, what is the difference? Or is there not a difference? Is it commissioner/president in their mind?
Yeah, and now that you say that, and thinking about it, talking about this new opportunity that you're taking, a new angle you're going to take, and my response back to you was talking about how the president title is typically given to somebody who's more of an advisor, and you're looking at a league now who is on the edge of the cliff, getting ready to dive into expansion, getting ready to dive into becoming an established league who's been around for a long time, and it's not a young league anymore. So to think of the possibilities of having both. Not saying that's going to happen, but just kind of snowballing that idea to have an advisor there to assist that maybe has some experience elsewhere with a different league, with another startup. I don't know if it was that article, but one of those articles compared it to the National Lacrosse League, Major League Lacrosse, I think. It might have been that article. And to maybe take somebody from that realm that has seen that league develop and succeed, to bring them over into the WNBA to help establish the league, but not have hands on completely. Like I said, be that advisor to a commissioner who is the face of the league, who is making those decisions in press conferences and announcing picks at the draft. I think that would be in large capacity a great move for the WNBA.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that.
And you're at this point in the league, you're going to have former players,
former
coaches, who are very interested in seeing the league succeed. So next article, moving on to the SB Nation article that I also found, which was from Matt Ellentuck, titled "The Search for the Next WNBA President Has Never Been More Important." Matt also listed top 3 reasons for writing this article. Number 1, the collective bargaining agreement CBA is set to expire following the 2019 season. We've heard players be more vocal about that, and I didn't see a date or a estimated time that they're going to talk about that, but that's honestly a very exciting, at the same time nervous time, right, that we are approaching. It'll be very cool to see who steps up from a player side. I know there are already leaders from like a players association standpoint, but who is going to step up is Kelsey Plum, who's a very young player in the league, going to continue her leadership from a vocal standpoint to get something done here with the CBA. I'm looking forward to that happening.
Yeah, and we've seen that already. I think it's across the board where the WNBA players are very vocal, and it's not even like hey, they're pounding on the desk, yelling, saying we want more money type of thing. It's just logical at the end of the day, really. I mean, in my mind it is, at least, and it's a fair cut in my mind. So
yeah, no, it's a great point. No brainers. How really is. Number 2 of those 3 points was about the New York Liberty, talking about their future and how it is uncertain because the team is up for sale. One of the first members of the league, so talking about the importance of keeping that team in New York with that established fan base, and we're approaching a situation like the Boston Bringers. I don't think we get to. I hope we don't get to that end point where you just don't have a team. I don't think that. There's no way that can happen in my eyes. I hope I'm not proven wrong in that, but you also hope that you can find an owner who is willing to keep the team, 1, in New York, and 2, built up in there, as opposed to just sort of letting them fail, which you've also seen happen in the NWSL. So that's point number 2 out of this 3. And then number 3. Talking about how the WNBA is growing and that you need to stay on track, which goes back to our thought about Lisa Borda's leaving, being done with her shift, basically, and now somebody else fills in. So keeping it on that same track and not dropping the baton and not slowing too much down on the transition, which is going to be very key for the league's success.
Yeah, I would like to see kind of the list of candidates that they have. I would like to see that if they've got a long or a short list right now, or even if it's just hey, we're looking for this, this, and this, and that's what we're going to go after. So we'll see.
Yeah, let's go ahead and put that on the books. Next week we'll have a list, 2 to 3 if you want to do 2 to 3 president candidates, 2 to 3 commissioner candidates. Couple of both. Let's go ahead and put that on the books, and we'll take care of that form next Thursday. Send it in, get something taken care of. I'm still campaigning for the NWSL commissionership, so I don't think I'll throw my name in the hat for this one. But we'll see once Amanda Duffy does return my email I sent. So something else I ran into. Don't know if you got a chance to look at this. Different thought. And at the end of the article, after reading these handful of paragraphs, the author wound up saying that they weren't even a fan of this proposal from Swish Appeal. Push Appeal website talking about term limits for national team ball players. So the idea was, and I wrote down the pros and cons. Term limits for players on the women's national basketball team. So we've seen the Sue Birds and the Diana Taurasi's, right? They're hanging around, and the article very well clearly states that they deserve to be there. They're easily top 5 best player in the world, let alone the country. They deserve to be there. So that was the reason that the author of this article didn't like term limits, because it's basically up to the player. All right, what you decide when you're done. You're either not good enough or you just don't want to play anymore. That's what you decide. And I agree with that. I wanted to see what your thoughts were, and because this had to have come from somewhere, right? I don't think the author would have just brought it up just to shoot it down. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where it came from. Pros that they did list: larger number of players get to represent. So we're gonna see 40 to 50 players play as opposed to 25, if that, right? Another pro was you get more rest for the WNBA stars, which is the biggest pro in my opinion. Something that we talked about, something that helps everybody out in the long run. And you're as good as our players are, and I think the article might mention this, how much do you lose is taken into consideration. The cons that were mentioned was that we would handicap ourselves if we did that the medals just aren't guaranteed. So you don't want to lose any chemistry or anything like that, or take your Our players have shown themselves superior, but when you take the second best, not the first best, even it might be a small step backwards, but it's still a step
backwards. Yeah, exactly. And I like your idea about how this could have been kind of in the talks already, and we just don't know about it. I guess I didn't even think about that. I just figured, well, there's just, I mean, you have Sue Bird and DT who have been playing for forever, as long as I can remember with Team USA. They've pretty much been on Team USA. So maybe it's just their way of saying, hey, maybe we could transition into this next phase of bringing in players who are younger, who maybe haven't had the experience at this top level with Team USA. I like the pros make sense for term limits, right? It's not that they're just bad reasoning for term limits. It's rest, which we've already seen happen with Maya Moore sitting out this World Cup. And then you do have that bigger group. It's more exposure. You have the ability to kind of switch everyone around. And again, more exposure, not only for Team USA, but for the WNBA as well, because the majority, or I got to imagine all players on Team USA at some point have played in the WNBA. But then the cons make sense as well. I would agree. I don't like the idea just because why would we put our second best in when we can be putting our first best in? But I think I wouldn't even call it second best though, because that's what Team USA is. We're just so good that there's not really a second best. We have our 1 and then 1A players, and even that's a little bit rude for those 1A players. I mean, whoever they're putting on the national team, they had to have competed with the best basketball players in the U.S. So if you're making the team, you can obviously play ball. So you should be able to play. I don't think that there should be term limits just because you're limiting players at the same time. Saying, hey, you're really good, but since you're our first best, you get to sit down.
Yeah, your time will come.
Yeah.
When you're older and not as good.
Yeah.
Right.
You'll see us in 10 years.
Yeah. Okay, a few things to finish up with. Lead in here, since I didn't give you a fair warning about this question, so I'll lead with this and I'll go into some updates, give you a few minutes to think about it. So a segment that I'll introduce tonight that we'll play with, probably do it once a month, and it's going to be the question, who in the world do you not want to be right now? So it'll relate to our sports. It can be one of our athletes, can be one of our coaches, can be anything within that realm. That who do you not want to be? Whether they've received some hate, whether they've done something bad, wrong, dumb, any of those can be an option that you can throw out there.
What's the cutoff? How far can I go back?
Well, right. So right now, who do you not want to be? Right. So
okay.
Right. So how it depends on how long. If they did something a year ago, has that grudge lasted the whole year that somebody's like, oh yeah, I still don't like you. So we'll do that here in a little bit after I go through some updates, and we'll also do that once a month. Keep that going. One other thing that is coming up for us to keep on your mind is like what we did last year for the NCAA basketball teams. You and I picked 4 teams. We went with them every month. We could trade basically or go into a free agent team and pull one of those out, and kept those through. I don't even know if we finished that last year, but it was fun while we did it for the regular season. So we'll pick that up again. Each of us will draft 4, and those will be our 4 teams that we're picking, thinking should and could get to the Final Four. So something else to keep in mind. As far as updates go, a week ago we had 3 undefeated NCAA volleyball teams. We are now down to 2. Illinois did lose back-to-back games, one to number 3 Nebraska, one to number 6 Wisconsin. I was just telling you, Alyssa, before we got on the podcast, was able to get to Huff Hall last night in Champaign-Urbana. Never been there before, heard it was an old place, heard it was cool. I actually never even driven by it, even though I'm in that city 2 to 3 days a week for work, but I was able to get there. And like I was telling you, it's a very cool facility where you walk up the stairs and you turn left to go to Science 101, and you turn right to go into this huge gymnasium. A little over 2,000 people in attendance last night. Illinois took the first set, but Wisconsin took over. Dana Rettke, 23 kills, just a solid performance from the Badgers, and that was a huge bounce back from them. That's their 2nd win in a row after getting beat pretty badly a couple of matches ago. So good bounce back for them, and a great top 10 match. A lot of energy in Huff Hall. So shook the stones that do hold up Huff Hall. There still are 2 remaining unbeaten teams. Pittsburgh now 15-0, and the number 1 team in the nation, BYU, they are also 15-0. I talked about BYU last week. It's going to be very difficult for them to get beat by someone in that WCC. I highly doubt that they finish the year with a loss. So just a couple of teams we'll continue to keep our eyes on. A few top 25 matchups in soccer. I will be in Bloomington tomorrow for my first Badger soccer game this year, which I'm very excited about. So it's been a while, and I'm glad to be back. Last night was my first volleyball game in 3 years, so that was good to be back. Then elsewhere, hockey, not a whole lot changed, not a whole lot happened as far as upsets went, and 9 of the top 10 preseason teams ranked stayed there. Colgate did lose, St. Lawrence did lose, but they are in the top 10. Boston College, they lost both of their opening weekend games. I should have checked to see who they lost to. I can take a look at that real quick. And then in soccer, there are 5 remaining unbeaten teams as well. So those are sort of spread out throughout the RPIs, as some teams aren't playing as tough as schedules. Yeah. You don't have to answer right now. You got a few candidates for who you don't want to be in the world right now.
I have one that was my gut reaction right away when you asked that, and I don't want to be the Mexican soccer team right now. I really don't. That's or true. That coach. Yeah, he was more specifically that coach. But in general, that team.
Yeah, he was pretty livid during the game too. I think thought he was going to bust a blood vessel. Boston College lost 2 to Minnesota Duluth, so basically just switching in the rankings there for those teams this week. And then we still got 10 minutes left. One thing I wanted to do, I mentioned it last week, and if you're able to do it as well, there's the She Is initiative. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So and you take the She Is pledge, just to read that through real quick. talking about being committed to supporting girls and women through the power of sports. When a girl or woman participates in sports, she is more likely to graduate from college. She is less likely to suffer from health concerns, and she is overall more self-confident and more likely to be a C-suite business leader. So going to sheissport.com -the pledge, you can go in there and fill out your name, first name and last name, and an email, and just talking about your support for women's athletics. So get a chance to do that. And I'm gonna hit the cough button. Look at that. That was professional. I was eating.
Yeah, it was great.
So let's get into who you don't want to be in the world right now.
Yeah, I think I'm sticking with my gut reaction. I'm gonna go with that one.
Okay. So mine's gonna be Amanda Duffy.
Yeah.
And probably not so much that anybody is really upset with her, right, or that she's done anything wrong, but you sort of just feel for her at some point that because she doesn't have the power to do much. Her position has never been upgraded for her to make the decisions, and we talked multiple times about how this league needs a commissioner, and the playoffs where Chicago and North Carolina are scheduled to play in North Carolina with the hurricane, and everybody's waiting around for somebody to make a decision, and there's probably people looking at her like, come on, you're acting commissioner. That's your title for written in pencil on your desk. So that's what you are. But is it really her that's to be making those decisions, or are there other people that need to be doing that with her, for her? So I definitely wouldn't want to be her, and talk about relief, not only from us fans, but whenever they do fill that spot, it's going to be very nice for her to get that.
Right. Yeah, I think it goes both ways.
Yeah. Right.
I think one person who was specifically looking at her during the Red Stars and the Courage, I guess, debacle on where the game would be played was Rory Dames. I saw an exchange where he was really pushing for, when they kept saying, well, the league made the decision, and he kept asking, who was the league? Who is the league? Who is making that decision? So, yeah, that's a good one. And I think it's been Amanda Duffy for a long time, pretty much since she took over the acting commissioner position.
Right, yeah, and you wonder how much of that was her wanting to do that, or her saying, all right, yeah, I'll do it. And then, did they say, oh, by the way, you'll be doing this for 3 years?
Yeah. Well, and then if it was the, oh yeah, I guess I'll do it, and then being in it for so long, how does she feel the fact of, well, I'm not actually commissioner? How does she feel that she doesn't have that position or that title? I got to imagine she doesn't want it since she hasn't been given it, but I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, right. No, I think you're right on there.
How long do you think it takes before they get a commissioner? What are they looking for in a commissioner?
I don't know. There's been no announcements.
Right.
There's been nothing about it. We've interviewed, you read stuff and you read about how we're just going to make sure we interview the right people and we take into consideration everything. Well, have you interviewed anybody? Who have you interviewed? What are you looking for in the candidate? Who do you want to apply? There's just so much that can be talked about that leads you to believe that nobody's done anything. Right? Which means we're probably at least 3 months away from making too quick of a decision. Half a year if you really want to think about it. So we're into next year, which I did read that basically those top officials are preparing for the 2019 season at this point. So maybe.
You got to imagine that you would think that a former player, a former coach, someone's got to be interested in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be my assumption, and maybe that's a terrible assumption to make. But to me, there's got to be someone out there who's played before, who's knowledgeable about this stuff, and who would be like, hey, let me step in, let me take this role. At this point, someone's got to be out there. Because I think you're right. I don't think they've been doing anything, at least from what we know.
Mm-hmm.
Which is part of the issue.
Yeah, right.
And then how much is U.S. soccer involved in that decision as well, if at all?
Right.
And if they are, how come they aren't pushing it more?
Right. And you can, I mean, there's plenty of conspiracy theories
right, exactly.
there too as well, right?
Yeah.
About if they are involved, maybe they're involved too much, or maybe they're the ones holding up the reins. Yeah. So
maybe here's my conspiracy theory. Maybe they are waiting for Jill Ellis to win another World Cup. Oh. And they can be like, hey, you've run your course. You've given us 2 World Cups. How about you go be commissioner of the NWSL? Just saying. That's my conspiracy theory.
How happy would that make you?
Oh. It'd make me so excited.
And there is an article on this commissioner topic, and it was from OregonLive.com, and the title was "NWSL doesn't appear to be any closer to finding a commissioner." So, that is the article where I saw that they made a comment about everybody's getting ready for 2019 season, so that's top priority right now. So until something does happen, it is Amanda Duffy with that weight that she didn't anticipate on her shoulders.
Yeah.
New streaming deal. Check that out with NWSL. It'll be on Yahoo Sports.
Mm-hmm.
That's another note about that. And anything else you got?
No, I'm good.
No? Okay. So I guess we'll come next week with candidates for WNBA president and for commissioner. We're deciding on how we want to set that up. Getting closer to those drafting our NCAA basketball team. So go ahead and looking up that. We're still a month away from the season, but we will get that taken care of pretty soon here. And I think as far as tonight's episode goes, that'll wrap us up. So we'll be back next Thursday, 9:09 p.m. We'll see you then.